I saw a Washington number pop up on my cell phone, which I didn't recognize, and I simply let it go to voicemail.
Thinking it was a spam call, I blocked the caller.
I did not pick up.
And I said, you see, that's why I don't think this is real. Is that a real place, or what is that?
Oh my. Phone call came and it said Washington, D.C., and I thought, I don't know anybody in Washington, so I let it ring through.
What, and who are you? And I thought it was one of those scam calls. I'm not answering this.
And it says private number, and I'm thinking, who's calling me now? So I answered it that way, kind of, hello, like you're bothering me. And it was this voice that said he was the nuncio.
Hello, Father Bill Byrne. This is Archbishop Christophe Pierre. He's French.
Or as he would say in his beautiful French accent, Beaumont.
What? You must be kidding. I said, no, I don't kid. I do serious stuff.
I meant this, and still do. I said, do you have the right Father Walk? Because my younger brother is a priest, and I think the better priest in the family. And that was the only time that he was, just a little bit off. He said, wait, are you not William? And I said, I am. Well, then you are the man, he said. And then he said, I have news now. Are you ready? And I said, okay, go ahead. And he said, you will be the bishop of the Diocese of Pensacola, Tallahassee. It was this long thing. And I just saw the words kind of wash by me. And I said, you see, that's why I don't think this is real. Is that a real place, or what is that? And he said, oh, beautiful beaches. You will love it. And, I asked more questions, I think. I said, what about my provincial and my superior general, because I am a Holy Cross religious? And he said, we have a higher authority than those people.
It was really a great surprise to me. Was preparing for the 4 o'clock Mass in my parish, and I answered the phone call about 5 minutes before 4 o'clock. And it was Cardinal Pierre, and he had told me that our Holy Father had appointed me the Bishop of Portland, Maine. And you can imagine what went through my head at that point, not expecting that phone call. Because of the time, we agreed to reconvene by the telephone later on, but it actually ended up being the next morning. So I sort of sat with this and slept with this, and it woke up the next morning. We talked at 8 o'clock, and we had more time to talk about the appointment and did I accept, and I told him yes, I did, but I had that maybe 12-hour period to sort of think about all this, and it was quite overwhelming.
Well, I remember getting the phone call from Archbishop Pierre on June the 1st of 2020, of course, right in the middle of global pandemic. I was a priest of St. Petersburg, Florida, and running our seminary, and he said, the Holy Father's named you the 6th Bishop of Beaumont in Texas, or as he would say in his beautiful French accent, Beaumont. It came as a total shock and a surprise. The location, being a bishop, all of the above.
I was speechless. It was a somewhat of an out-of-body experience, if you could really say that. I think he found it humorous. I'm sure it happens to him a lot, where he says, Holy Father Francis has appointed you the bishop of wherever that might be, and to hear silence on the other end of the line, I'm sure is probably the normative response.
There's a sense of being chosen. I think I look back at it and you think this is from God. And speaking with Archbishop Pierre, the language that came surprised me. The Holy Father has appointed you. It was kind of past perfect. I said, he has, do I get to pray about this?
I was certainly surprised, very humbled by it, and grateful to the Holy Father for allowing me to serve in this capacity with all my limitations. So.
Yeah, well, the first call when I became an auxiliary bishop of Los Angeles, it was complete shock. I was a priest of Chicago. I was rector of the seminary at the time, and it was a Sunday afternoon. I had a busy morning, of masses, and I was just kind of exhausted. And then this phone call comes, and he said, the Holy Father's appointed you auxiliary bishop of Los Angeles. And every single word of that struck me as puzzling. And what? And who are you? And, so no, it was a complete, utter surprise. And I kind of knew, even as I stood there with the phone in my hand, like, okay, my whole life has just changed. So that's what it was like.
Well, just so you know, I got 4 phone calls in a row from Washington, D.C. on December 2nd. Thinking it was a spam call, I blocked the caller, not knowing it was the papal nuncio. So eventually he got a hold of Bishop Bill Walk in Tallahassee and said, I'm trying to reach Father Neri. How do I get him? And he said, try WhatsApp. So I have this WhatsApp message from December 4 where he asked if he could talk to me. So I unblocked him and we talked. And then he asked me, he didn't even ask me, he said, "You've been appointed by the Holy Father as the new bishop of the Diocese of St. Cloud in Minnesota." And so, of course, I had to say yes, but it was a huge shock. A bit overwhelming and yet a great honor to be asked.
Still can remember that call profoundly because the adrenaline shot in my whole system was immense, but and just saying yes to the will of God through the invitation of the Holy Father. And so it was awesome. And when you look up the word awesome, it's a moment of wonder and fear. And I would say it's wrapped up in that word.
When I get the call from the nuncio, I was driving in my car. I saw a Washington number pop up on my cell phone, which I didn't recognize, and I simply let it go to voicemail. As I'm driving about 15 minutes more, I listened to the voicemail. I realized who was calling me, and I pulled off the expressway. I found a place in a parking lot, and I spoke to, at that time, Archbishop Christophe, Pierre. He said to me, "Congratulations, the Holy Father has just named you as auxiliary bishop for the Archdiocese of Chicago."
Well, it was at the beginning of the pandemic. It was Monday of Holy Week, and I knew that we were going to have a busy week because we were filming Easter Mass on Tuesday so that we could broadcast it to the city on Easter Sunday. And I was doing laundry. I had put clothes in the washer. We had a common apartment area, and I had 2 loads in washers, and it came time to put the 2 loads in the dryers, and a phone call came, and it said Washington, D.C., and I thought, I don't know anybody in Washington, so I let it ring through. And it wasn't until got the clothes in the dryer that I looked and saw that the robocall left a message, and as it turns out, it was the nuncio, and called him back, and when he told me that I had been appointed Bishop of Alexandria, I just was silent for a good length of time. And finally he says, "Hello?" And I said, "I'm here," but I really had no response at that point. So I asked if I could think about it, pray about it, and eventually called him back.
It was on a Sunday, and I had a confession for the Mass oriented to the young people. And I was just walking from the church to the house, and I looked at my phone, and I said, there was a call from Washington. And I had a friend, I thought that was him calling, but I said, "Nunciate?" They said, "No, what did I do this time?" So then I finally called, and the nuncio answered, and he said, "You have chosen to be the Bishop of Charleston." I said, "What? You must be kidding." He said, "No, I don't kid. I do serious stuff."
I waited for 6 years, and I'll say that I will say though that the nuncio, Cardinal Christophe Pierre, was very, very helpful. He was a good companion through that whole process. So when I finally got the call from him that the Holy Father had granted my request for for an auxiliary, I was just delighted. So that was. It was early on a Sunday morning to get that call, and that was a nice day, a nice way to start the Lord's Day.
To be honest, never thought in my dream to be getting this privilege to serve in the church in a different capacity. But I was really scared, to be honest. And then when I talked to Bishop Soto, and it gives me comfort that, wow, I have somebody to lean on and guiding me the way. And it was even the first person to tell me, like, that's normal. Not meaning that I was normal when I was that feeling of so scared and don't know what to do.
When I received that call from the nuncio asking if I would become auxiliary bishop in San Antonio, I was shocked. I think our Cardinal Pierre now was a little frustrated with me, I think, because I got the call. I'll never forget. It was a Monday. I was working at our counseling center. I saw clients on Monday. It was 5:30. I was at my desk eating a bowl of cereal. I knew I had a 6:30 meeting, and I get this call, and it said Washington, D.C. on my cell phone. And I thought it was one of those scam calls. I'm not answering this. And then it kept ringing. I thought, well, maybe there's something. Maybe it's important. I don't know what it is. And I never thought that. So I answered it, and I heard that voice, asked who is this Father Girionic, and so I said yes, and he introduced himself, and he says the Holy Father. He goes right into it. He says the Holy Father has appointed you as auxiliary bishop in the Archdiocese of San Antonio, and then almost immediately said, do you accept? And it's like, oh my, it's like, I was just speechless, and I was shocked, and I was saying, I don't understand, I'm not worthy. I kept saying that. And he was so kind. And the cardinals began speaking about other things, and well, you know San Antonio, right? Yes, I studied there as a seminarian, and he tried to ease my heart. And at the end, finally, I think I kept saying, but I'm not worthy, I'm not worthy. And finally he says, why don't you sit down and just take a breath? And so I did. And then he finally, I think he got frustrated, and he said, well, the Holy Father thinks you are worthy. Do you accept? And so in the end, I told him, I said, I've never asked for an assignment, and I've never refused an assignment. So I said, yes, I would accept. So it was one of those days that I'll never forget.
Total surprise. So I was not expecting this call. I was very happy as pastor in a very multicultural parish. So when I was called to be a bishop, so I just received it with trust, I would say, in the divine providence that the Lord will give me what I need in order to fulfill this call.
I was standing at a gate at the airport in Wichita, waiting for a flight. They had just called my group number, and they were announcing that they were running out of overhead bin room, and we were going to have to check our carry-ons, and I was worried about that. I didn't want to do that. And then I get this call while I'm waiting in line, anxious about my bag, and it says private number, and I'm thinking, who's calling me now? So I answered it that way, kind of, hello, like you're bothering me. And it was this voice that said he was the nuncio. And so I had to step out of the line, and I kind of sensed what was coming, but wasn't sure. And he did a very good job of just kind of calming me down. And we had a very brief conversation when he informed me that the Holy Father had named me the 4th Bishop of Jefferson City. And it took my breath away, because I didn't know what to say. And in fact, I remember him saying, hello, are you there? And I said, yes, I'm here. Please let the Holy Father know I say yes. And but I was pausing too, because I was thinking of a bunch of questions I should ask. Maybe, how's the diocese doing? I didn't know much about the Diocese of Jefferson City. I didn't know how many priests they had. I didn't know if they were bankrupt or doing really well with their school system. I didn't know anything. And then the thought came to me of what my spiritual director in the seminary told me, is that whenever the church asks for something, you have to respond with a positive. You have to give yourself to what the church is asking. And that sense of calm came over me, and I was able to say yes. So that day will forever stick out in my memory.
It was a little bit crazy because I had worked at the Apostolic Nunciature. I was in regular contact with Archbishop Pierre, the nuncio, and I was working as a parish priest in Cincinnati, and I was thinking about calling the nuncio, but I was very busy. But I had a day off, and I thought, I have some work to get done for him. I'll do it today. And he called, and I almost sent his call into voicemail. But then I said, no, I'll take it. It is the nuncio after all. And he said, well, where are you? I said, Excellency, I was just thinking about you. He said, well, where are you? I said, I'm walking into my office now. And he said, are you alone? Yeah, I said, I closed the door behind me. And he said, are you sitting down? And this, are you alone? Are you sitting down? Was always how he asked new bishops, or told them really that the Holy Father had nominated him. He said, well, the Holy Father has nominated you as the next Bishop of Columbus.
To get the call was the best word I can use is surreal. It's almost like an out-of-body experience. It's when you, it's just coming out of the blue. You're kind of continuing on your day and your work, and all of a sudden, you get a call that changes your life. So it's, but it was very humbling, and I'm still unpacking, everything.
First, it was surprise when I got a call from the nuncio. As a matter of fact, I had 3 missed calls actually. Before I finally got the call. I was in the Mass. But gradually from surprise to thanksgiving to humility, humbled to humbled to be appointed as Auxiliary Bishop of El Paso.
So I received the call from the nuncio. I got the call and it came up on my cell phone. And it was like, I didn't know that number. So I was like, I'm not sitting there talking to some spam. And then it came up as a voicemail. Actually, the receptionist in the parish where I was sick that day. So I was sitting at the front desk answering the phones. But then I went to, so I was like, I listened to the message and it's like, hello, Father Bill Byrne. This is Archbishop Christophe Pierre. He's French. And then my hand started shaking. He said, please call me at your earliest convenience. And I was like, he wasn't calling me for my ratatouille recipe, you know? He was calling to, I don't know, change my life. And he did. And it was pretty, and then I went and said a prayer. And then I was like, okay, let's go. The hardest part is the delay before when you find out and when you can tell anybody. So you're sitting there, I was sitting there in parish staff meetings and they're like, let's plan Christmas. I'm like, I'm going to be living in Massachusetts and nobody knows it at Christmas. So that was that.
Well, when I received the call from the nuncio, actually it was twice. Once was when I was going to become a bishop, and that was in Washington. And I was asked to be an auxiliary bishop in Washington. And that, for me, it was a great surprise. It wasn't something I was looking for or expected. I was actually leaving my parents' graveside. I was visiting them for the day and staying in my office in the cemetery there. And as I pulled out, I got a call from the nuncio, and he said, Monsignor, are you seated? And I said, well, I can be. And he said, the Holy Father is appointing you a auxiliary bishop in Washington. And so that was a great joy, and again, very much a surprise. So going to Buffalo was really a surprise for me because, again, it was an area of the country that I didn't know much about. But the nuncio said that the Holy Father had appointed me there. I didn't know about a lot of the challenges that we were facing, because we were facing a lot of challenges in Washington. So I was focused on those. So he said, well, do you accept? And I said immediately, I said yes. I never said no to an assignment, and never will.
Where I was active duty there. And while I was on active duty in the fall of 2014 is when I received a phone call from the Apostolic Nuncio about my appointment as the Bishop of Fairbanks, which was quite the shock. But realized that in short time, I made a visit out to a village that had not seen a bishop for several years. And I took some vacation time from the military. So this was like 3 weeks after I was ordained. And I'm standing in this village on the airstrip got off the airplane on a frozen airstrip with a backpack in one hand, a duffel bag in the other, and I'm looking at these two items. And I thought I was standing on a mountaintop in Afghanistan with these same pieces of luggage in a combat zone, waiting for a helicopter to come and pick me up, and how God took that experience of combat, living in a tent in the mountains of Afghanistan, and thank God there was no gunfire, explosions, and combat in Alaska, but realizing he could use the challenges, the difficulty, the ruggedness of life that I lived in the military, and especially in combat, for a greater good. And then from there, it really kind of solidified in my mind that Lord will take this experience. He draws straight with crooked lines, and he will use this for serving an awesome people that I got to know as the bishop there for 8 years before I moved to New Ulm, Minnesota.
My reaction was disbelief. I received 6 phone calls from the nuncio. I did not pick up on the first 5. Because I thought it was a spam call from Washington, D.C., because I don't know anyone in Washington, D.C. So when I received the call from the nuncio, I actually thought it was a joke, because sometimes priests prank call each other. They say it's the Pope, and I didn't even know who the nuncio was, to be honest. Sorry. But I thought it was a joke initially.
It happened to be that day the feast of Mary, Mother of the Church, which was all about Mary's yes. And so I took great comfort and solace in Mary's yes and said, well, Lord, I gave you myself 25 years ago as a priest and have never said no. And so if this is the will of the Father and the will of the Holy Father, I'm going to trust the Holy Spirit and say yes.
But of course, he says no, you say yes and then you pray. The idea is that you have been chosen and something unlooked for, but it's a grace from God, and I've grown into that sense of calling. So it's been a great blessing.
It was at that moment that I could hear this voice that I used to tell the seminarians who I taught at Mundelein Seminary. What I used to say to them when I was their dean of formation was this: if you ever find the Holy Spirit whispering into your ear, if you ever find the church asking you to do something, if you have the opportunity and the ability to say yes, look for the ways of saying yes. So with an open heart, I accepted it and continued this journey until now.
So it was shock. I wasn't expected to be moved from the parish, and I've been there for 14 years. So it was very difficult, and also the unknown and what is expected of me as a bishop, and that's it was like, and I did it. I said yes because of the situation the Haitians were living, or still living. And I think it was going to be a good moment. It was a good moment to say yes. And also, as a Scalabrinian, there was never a Scalabrinian bishop in the United States. There was one who is American, but he was bishop for Canada. So then when I said yes, it was because, and I was going to be the first Haitian to be an ordinary. So this thing went through mine quickly, and I said yes.
I had this burning sensation in my chest. I swiveled my chair, looked up at the picture of my parents with me after my first Mass, and then the crucifix, and I said, okay, I accept. And having worked at the nunciature, I know how hard the staff there works to help find bishops for dioceses. And so I thought, okay, let's. And he said, well, you know the mind of Pope Francis. We'll work well together. It's an important diocese. And so it was shocking, but then I had to be quiet about it for about 10 days because at my parish, we had confirmation, we had our parish Lenten mission. And then I was announced April 2nd, which was the death anniversary of Pope John Paul II, but also the consecration anniversary of Archbishop Schnurr as bishop. So those things all went hand in hand.
But then when he said, no, it's real, it's me, Christophe Pierre, I was in total shock, and I had to sit down to listen to the news. But it was a really shocking phone call.
I figure I used up all my questions, and he said, what do you say? I need an answer from you. And I said, yes. With the help of God, I say yes. And he said, good. You may tell no one for 9 days. It will be announced on this day. Goodbye. Wow. So that one little phone call changed my life. It happened in about 10 minutes.